It was a warm and windless night at Mar-a-Lago, the grand estate that had become Donald Trump's stronghold after leaving the White House. Palm Beach slept under a blanket of heat and silence, but inside Trump's private office, a storm was about to erupt, the kind no radar could predict. At 11:47 p.m., a strange alert appeared on his encrypted tablet, a secure incoming call from a number that hadn't been active in 6 years. That line was reserved for emergencies. Life and death level conversations, the kind that never got logged. Trump leaned forward, narrowed his eyes. Only 3 men had that number. 2 were dead. The third vanished from the public eye, thought to be buried in some CIA ghost program. He answered, no greeting, no name, just static. Then a voice, distorted and synthetic as if masked by layers of vocal encryption, whispered, they're already inside. Trump straightened up. His heart didn't race. It roared. Who the hell is this? Someone who tried to warn you once. You didn't listen then. Maybe now you will. The voice paused, then continued with something that made Trump freeze mid-breath. They're watching your family, Ivanka, Jared, even the boy. The room seemed to contract around him. The silence between the static was deafening. Who's watching them? Not the CIA, not the FBI. Someone older, someone still in power, but no longer in office. Trump's blood turned cold. Are you talking about Obama? The voice didn't respond directly. Instead, a file began transferring to his screen, a small, heavily encrypted video file. The file name was a single word. Hollow Point. He opened it. Grainy black and white footage loaded. A high-angle hidden camera. The view from the ceiling light of a luxury bedroom. A woman stepped into frame. Ivanka. She was sitting at her vanity mirror, brushing her hair. In the background, a male voice spoke softly. Possibly Jared. Trump's face hardened. The timestamp read, 3 days ago. He didn't blink. How the hell did they get this? No answer. A message flashed on screen. This is one of 13 feeds. They're watching all of them, including you. Then the screen went black. The line disconnected. Silence again. But Trump no longer felt alone in the room. The morning sun crept over Mar-a-Lago like a thief pretending to be gentle. Inside, the air was heavy, not with humidity, but with fear disguised as focus. Trump hadn't slept. His mind kept replaying the footage of Ivanka's room, the hidden camera, the encrypted message. Now, inside the estate's private command room, the tension had thickened into a fog no one could see through. Eric Trump burst in first, eyes bloodshot. Ivanka's driver, he said, slapping a folder on the polished oak table. He's gone. Donald opened the file. The man's name, Miguel Rivas, age 41. Colombian American, clean record, solid resume, 7 months of loyal service. But something was off. Eric pointed to a line on the second page. His social security number belongs to a dead man, died in New Mexico, 2003. That's not Miguel Rivas. It never was. Trump narrowed his eyes. How the hell did that slip past vetting? Before anyone could answer, Jared Kushner entered, visibly pale. Ivanka tried calling him. No response. We traced the car's GPS, but it was disabled at 3:04 this morning. No signal since then. Surveillance logs don't show him leaving. No car left the estate, Trump asked. None, Eric confirmed. Gate logs are clean. No exits between 2 and 6 a.m. Trump stared at the folder, then at the screen replaying silent footage of the man walking calmly into the garage at 2:58 a.m. And then nothing. He had vanished into thin air. No car, no escape route, just gone. An emergency search began within minutes. Trump's elite private security swept the property from top to bottom. They used infrared scanners, sound-detecting drones, even ground-penetrating radar in the garden. It paid off. In the guesthouse garage, behind a tool cabinet bolted to the floor, they found a false wall. Inside it, a metal hatch, sealed but unlocked. When pried open, it revealed a narrow shaft, just wide enough for a man to crawl through. The tunnel went deep underground and stretched nearly 400 meters, all the way to a concealed drainage canal, hidden behind decorative bushes at the estate's edge. Someone had spent months building this, quietly, precisely, from the outside in. This wasn't a panic escape, one guard whispered. This was premeditated, blueprinted. No, Trump said coldly. This wasn't just one man. This was infrastructure. Someone gave him permission. Back in the driver's quarters, the final puzzle piece was taped behind a loose ceiling vent. A USB flash drive, wrapped in black tape, nearly invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Trump's cyber forensics team decrypted it within hours. Inside the device were not just surveillance notes, but tactical documents, floor plans of Trump Tower, entry points at Ivanka's Washington residence, a detailed schedule of Barron's school drop-offs, and then a file that made everyone in the room go silent. Operation Violet, Draft 214. It read like a mission playbook. Estimated response times for local law enforcement, Secret Service shift rotations, psychological profiles of Trump family members, and a chilling simulation, a non-lethal capture of Barron Trump conducted as a containment and extraction exercise. This wasn't information gathering, Trump said, voice tightening. This was a dry run, a test, a warning, or something worse, a rehearsal for a day that hadn't arrived yet. He stood, tossed the USB onto the table like it was toxic. I want every name tied to this ghost, every payment, every contractor, every supervisor. Find out where he was trained and who signed the checks. Then, after a long pause, he added, if it leads back to the top, we don't stop at the middle. By dusk, the walls of Mar-a-Lago were under digital siege. Trump's security team, now operating with near-military discipline, initiated a full-spectrum sweep, looking for bugs, hidden mics, embedded trackers. They scanned vents, light fixtures, furniture seams. Nothing was off limits. Everything was suspect. The breakthrough came in the unlikeliest of places. Barron's bedroom. A Secret Service agent noticed something odd. An old teddy bear sitting on the edge of the bookshelf. One glass eye scratched the other, reflecting light in an unnatural way. They brought it to the tech room. Under infrared and UV, the bear lit up like a Christmas tree. Inside its right eye was a micro pinhole camera. Embedded in its stomach was a pulse transmitter disguised as a child-safe battery pack. But this wasn't an ordinary bug. It wasn't storing footage. It was live streaming. Constantly. This signal isn't bouncing off local towers, said the lead tech. It's routing through a satellite uplink. This thing is military. Trump stared at the bear in disbelief. That was in my son's room. How long? Best guess, months. He crushed the bear in his palm and hurled it into a metal tray. Traced the signal. It took only hours. The digital trail led them through a maze of relays and decoys, until finally the source emerged. A building in downtown Chicago, registered to a nonprofit called Unity Forward, a think tank supposedly tied to youth leadership, but long rumored to be a post-administration project of Obama's inner circle. Trump's men hacked into utility logs. The 17th floor of Unity Forward's building had no registered tenants. Yet it drew the power usage of a data center, consuming more electricity than all the other floors combined. Every night between 2:00 and 4:00 M, the building's internal cameras mysteriously shut down. This was not an office. It was a covert operations hub. Back in Florida, Barron was brought in for questioning. Trump sat with him, softer now. Where did you get the bear? Barron looked confused. I didn't buy it. Someone gave it to me. Who? One of your people. He said it was from a donor. That detail struck hard. Trump ordered a review of every staff member who'd had access to Barron's room over the last year. The match came quickly. Daniel Crowe, a former digital strategist for the Trump 2020 campaign, left on good terms. Now working for a private lobbying firm in D.C., one with deep connections to defense contracts and Obama-era tech grants. Crowe had been inside Mar-a-Lago twice since his resignation. Both times he'd visited family quarters. Both times Barron had been present. He walked in like a friend, Trump muttered, and he left us carrying a bomb. The bear wasn't just surveillance. It was a message. We're close enough to watch your children sleep. Trump looked at the crushed pieces of fluff and steel on the table, then turned to his chief of security. We're not just reacting anymore. From this point forward, we hunt. The name surfaced like a ghost, barely a whisper from a man long forgotten. A former White House custodian, now retired and living off-grid in Arizona, had once cleaned the halls beneath the West Wing. He was terrified when Trump's team reached out, but after an encrypted video call and assurances of protection, he spoke a single sentence. There's a room we were told never to ask about. They called it 114B. It wasn't on any official floor plan, no security badge readers, no internal documentation. But when cross-checked with structural blueprints from 1957, buried deep in National Archives, room 114B existed. Buried 2 floors below press access, shielded in concrete, no windows, no known access points. Who used it? Trump asked. Only the last administration, the janitor whispered. It started with Obama. Within hours, calls were made. Old favors cashed in. Legal threats ignored. And by midnight, Trump's team was rolling into Washington in an unmarked SUV, headed to the one place he thought he'd never return, the White House. They entered under cover of darkness through a secondary service tunnel used by staff decades ago. A Secret Service agent loyal to Trump met them inside. Down they went, past the old Situation Room, through maintenance shafts, into a level where even Wi-Fi dared not reach. And there it was. Room 114B. It had no sign, no label. Just a thick titanium door flush with the concrete, like it had never meant to be opened again. There was no keypad, only a magnetic strip scanner, long dead. No one had the original access codes. Trump called in a military-grade contractor via helicopter. 40 minutes later, the seal gave way with a mechanical hiss. The door cracked open like a tomb. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with static. The room was a miniature operations center, dust-covered but intact. Dead monitors lined the walls. Thick cables ran across the floor. Emergency lighting flickered above like candlelight in a bunker. Everything was soundproofed, military-grade padding from ceiling to floor. But one thing was still alive. A single terminal in the back blinked faint green. Power backup had kept it running. They approached. No login prompt, no security barriers, just an open running interface, quietly looping through dozens of surveillance feeds. At first the footage looked archived. Then they noticed the timestamps, all dated from 2014 to 2017. Trump Tower, Ivanka's old kitchen, Melania's reading lounge, Barron's bedroom in New York, even footage from inside Trump's personal jet. This wasn't footage pulled from public sources. This is proprietary, whispered the head tech. These feeds were patched directly from private surveillance systems, through an internal node, real time back then, possibly still connected. Trump didn't say a word. His eyes locked onto the screen. Then came the final screen. Sapphire host server, status idle. The same name they had seen on the USB from the disappearing driver. The same name that Snowden had hinted at. The heart of the surveillance network had a name. And this was its nerve center. Trump turned to his chief of intel. Who had access to this room? The man hesitated, then handed over a printed security clearance list from Obama-era records. There were dozens of names blacked out, but one line wasn't redacted. Clearance holder, 44 POTUS. Trump didn't flinch. He simply muttered, "It was never a conspiracy, it was a goddamn project." And they had just opened its control room. Even after uncovering room 114B, the ghost chamber hidden beneath the White House, Trump couldn't shake one growing fear. Every step he took, every move his team made, the enemy already seemed to know. How are they always ahead of us? It wasn't just residual networks from Obama's years. It wasn't just surveillance satellites or old command centers. Someone was still feeding them fresh intel. Someone inside the house. So Trump ordered something unthinkable. A complete internal sweep. Every person within his trusted orbit, advisors, bodyguards, pilots, assistants, even family liaisons, was silently put under surveillance. They had to move carefully, surgically. One wrong accusation, and the real traitor would vanish. Within 72 hours, the cracks began to show. It started small. A harmless-looking text intercepted from a junior communications staffer. Just emojis. 3 suns, a crown, and a chess piece. Meaningless to most, but not to the right analyst. "This is a Cold War cipher," whispered the codebreaker, "used by sleeper cells for activation." The girl was detained, questioned quietly. She wasn't the mastermind, just a go-between. But what she confessed broke everything open. "I didn't ask questions. I just sent information to one person, someone very high up, someone you trust." She gave them a name, Alex Navarro. Trump went silent. Alex had been with him since the beginning. Policy advisor turned strategic confidant. The kind of man who knew the back doors of every secure room, who had access to encrypted files, travel plans, and family schedules. He was the guy who brought you coffee and knew the name of your private pilot. He was invisible because he was everywhere. Trump didn't confront him, not yet. Instead, he laid a trap. A memo was crafted. A fake security briefing claiming that Trump and his family would fly to a secluded compound in Scotland under maximum secrecy. The memo was shared with only one person, Alex Navarro. 4 hours later, that same flight plan was pinged by Allied intelligence. It had leaked. directly through foreign cyber nodes known to be monitored by hostile actors. Alex had taken the bait. The next morning, Trump arranged a private debriefing in a quiet conference room at Mar-a-Lago. Navarro walked in like it was just another morning, smiling, calm, holding a folder, ready to work, until two guards stepped into the room and locked the door behind him. His smile didn't vanish immediately. It cracked slowly. Trump leaned across the table. I gave you access to everything, my plans, my people, my family. Navarro didn't deny it. He just looked back, eyes devoid of fear. You think this ends with me? Who are you working for? A long pause. Then, cool as ice, Navarro said, You'll never reach them. They were here before you. They'll be here after you. Trump stood slowly. Not if I take them all down with me. Navarro was escorted out in silence. No headlines, no press leaks. He vanished into a black site where no lawyer would follow. But his arrest wasn't the victory Trump hoped for, because now he understood something even worse. If Navarro got this deep, there could be more. As Trump looked around his war room, he gave one final order to his team. From this moment forward, we assume every wall has ears, because if one ghost was hiding beside him this long, who else was already inside? The silence inside the Mar-a-Lago war room was heavier than ever. Navarro was gone, locked in a black site, but the sense of victory never came. If anything, it felt like peeling back a layer, only to find more darkness underneath. That night, just after 3 a.m., Trump's cybersecurity director approached him holding a flash drive. No label, no signature, just a title buried deep in the metadata, Exodus Protocol Echo. It had arrived through a Tor network, bouncing through multiple countries, Iceland, Russia, Malaysia, before landing through an anonymous relay on a private server located on a barely mapped island. The encryption was old, military, but buried within it was something unmistakable. A digital signature only one man in the world still used. It's him, the tech whispered. Snowden. Trump didn't blink. Play it. The screen flickered. A grainy image appeared. Dim lighting, a man seated in the shadows of what looked like a decaying concrete room. His face was blurred, but not completely. His voice was distorted, but recognizable. You were never supposed to see this, the voice said. In the system you're unraveling isn't Obama's, and it isn't Biden's. It predates them. All of them. What you call Sapphire is just one spoke in a much larger wheel, and you've only touched the outer ring. Trump leaned forward. The rest of the room held its breath. Snowden continued, more urgent now, less cryptic. The real infrastructure, the thing that controls surveillance, manipulation, preemptive disinformation, it's global, not federal. I've seen the logs. Navarro wasn't alone. There's another operative. They called it Shadow Base 9. It's not in the U.S. You won't find it on any satellite. It exists off-grid, deep in the North Atlantic quadrant. Former NATO black site, now privatized. Trump's hand curled into a fist. No one else spoke. The video glitched, as if intentionally distorted. If you want the truth, you'll have to leave American soil. But be warned, the ones behind this don't fear exposure. They fear one thing, retaliation. Then the screen went black. Only one line remained, blinking in white type on black background. Some knowledge isn't meant to be survived. The room stayed in stunned silence. No one dared speak first. Finally, an aide asked, voice low, Sir, do you believe him? Trump didn't answer right away. He walked slowly to the window, staring out at the still Florida night. Then, without turning around, he spoke. He's not telling us everything. A pause. But he told us enough. They had confirmation now. The threat wasn't just domestic. It wasn't just one presidency or one enemy. It was a shadow system that transcended borders and administrations. And it had just blinked. The silence in Mar-a-Lago had changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was calculation. The kind that comes before wars, not speeches. Trump sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by the cold glow of security monitors and maps filled with red circles, timelines, code names. His most trusted staff spoke less now. They all felt it. The game had moved to another board, and then something arrived that no one had anticipated. A file. Mod chicks USB jo chuyenjen mod kach wodan, trongfong bichong danten dap dao bujin tumot sambain ho o Alaska. Hong gichu. Hong nangoi gui. Kiko toa jo GPS va modei ma hoa nam sao trong metadata. Kichuyen ganing mangkwa Trump gamen, ka fong nin leng, ma hoa kwa ku, kwa fuk tap, nung chiko mot ngoi konsong sudung loai ne. Snowden. It's him, the tech whispered. Snowden, The message. Video bat len. Hinan hiu moam. Mot ngoi jan ong ngoi trong bong toi. Gyong noi bi bob meo. Nhang ven ju jen handra. Fia sao la mot buk tuong betong ku. An jin john le laklun hu jong ho jem nguas. If you're seeing this, Snowden said, then the project has already breached containment. You're not chasing Obama or Biden or even the deep state. You're chasing a virus. Project Sapphire wasn't a surveillance program. It was a testbed, a prototype for predictive influence modeling, real-time manipulation, media distortion, behavioral coercion. It didn't just monitor you, it predicted you. Trump's jaw tightened. They tested it on enemies, then allies, then their own. Some of your people weren't watched. They were engineered. Snowden nangang jaun hin vao camera, hu the jang hin suyen kwa luk jia. Navarro was just one node. There's another. Codename, Shadowbase 9. Not in the US. No flag, no constitution. Built by NATO, sold off, privatized, autonomous, black budget. If you want the truth, you'll have to go off-grid. And if you go alone. Tin hio bat jaun hio. Truochki man hintatan Snowden suigan vao mai kwe. They don't fear exposure. They fear disruption. They fear you. Roy man hink toijin. Mat dong chukwai kung hien lian. What you think is the ceiling is just the next floor. Aftermath. Hong aitrong fong hutsnich. Trump jung day, cham rai buok jin man hing, Roy kwe lung lai, Hong fai vi kin thong, men hu the ong ja sats han ju min van luon nung hingo. This was never about politics, ong noi, jong thap. It's about controlling reality. And someone has learned how to program it. Mot ko van hoi, chung ta chokong bo chuyen nai kong thuan gay. Trump let's chow. No, not yet. If they control what people believe, then truth is worthless, unless it hits them where it hurts. Silence again, but it wasn't the same. This was no longer a defense. This was the beginning of a counterattack. Truth had failed. Proof had failed. The American people didn't need facts. They needed shock. And Trump knew, if you want to kill a monster built in the dark, you don't shine a light. You burn the cave. So he stopped playing defense. Operation Sovereign Echo was born that same night. No paper, no signatures, no command chain. Just a verbal order carried between ghosts. Men and women who no longer existed in any official system. Former CIA tacticians, rogue NSA engineers, disavowed special forces. Some had once tried to bring Trump down. Now they were his last hope of fighting back. The mission had 3 core pillars. First, dismantle every surveillance node still linked to Project Sapphire. The digital tentacles still embedded inside US soil. Second, inject cyber chaos into the global misinformation lattice. Neural nets that were shaping elections, manipulating financial markets, and rewriting public memory in real time. Third, locate and infiltrate a place whispered in Snowden's message. Shadowbase 9, a fortress built offshore, out of sight, off every grid, and housing the core system that governed mass cognitive control. It had to be surgical, swift, loud, only at the end. The first node fell in San Francisco. On paper, it was a social psychology think tank. In reality, its servers fed behavioral data straight to a deep learning black box buried under NATO archives. It was vaporized in a 3:14 a.m. electrical failure. Official report, transformer surge. Brussels was next. A wellness nonprofit with an alarming amount of quantum bandwidth. Gone in flames. Then Seoul, then Quebec, then Johannesburg. By week's end, 7 nodes were dark. Each strike returned a single encrypted reply from a hidden channel. A received. But that wasn't victory. That was just knocking on the door. Shadowbase 9 remained untouched. And Trump knew, if they didn't kill the brain, the monster would grow new arms. According to Snowden's coordinates, it was once a NATO weather station. Long decommissioned, then purchased through a shell company linked to 5 national security contractors. It sat in the North Atlantic, between no borders, under no law, hidden beneath a remote ice shelf, covered by storms masked from satellites. A perfect black site, a perfect cage, but also a perfect throne for whoever sat at the center of global narrative control. Trump gathered his inner cell. The ones who hadn't broken, the ones who'd seen the inside of the chamber under the White House, the ones who believed. They met in a hangar just outside Reykjavik. We fly low. No manifest, no transponder, no radio. We get in, get the drive, and when we leave, We burn the map. There was no applause, just silence, and the sound of steel being loaded. This wasn't diplomacy. This wasn't politics. This was a kill mission, and they would not return unless the machine that watched the world was reduced to ash and memory. The wind howled like a godless thing. 30 nautical miles off the coast of Greenland, buried beneath a cloak of eternal storm and ice thick enough to crush tanks, stood Shadow Base 9. Officially, it didn't exist. No flight paths crossed overhead. No ships neared the frozen edge. Civilian radar was deceived by artificial auroras. Electromagnetic illusions generated by the base itself, warping light and scrambling satellites. But Trump's jet carved through the sky like a blade through silk. This mission had no code name, no official commander, only coordinates etched into the minds of 6 people. A war pilot, 2 Tier 1 operatives, a data exfiltration specialist, an AI behavioralist, and Trump. They landed on ice, 1,000 meters from the structure, beneath untouched snow that hadn't known footprints in years. They found a steel hatch. Cold, seamless, silent. It only opened after a 6-digit code was entered, the one Snowden had hidden in the metadata of his warning video. Below, a shaft of pure black. They descended. Shadow Base 9 wasn't a bunker. It was a cathedral, built to worship control. Carved into glacial stone, the facility activated only as they entered. Motion sensors woke a lattice of soft blue LED lights, illuminating a space so silent it made machines sound holy. No guards, no alarms, no visible defenses. Just rows of humming servers, alive, breathing, listening. At the center hovered a massive black cube suspended by magnetic locks. A single label glowed faintly on its surface. Cortex Core, 20 feet tall, silent, pulsing. The data specialist connected a bypass cable, then froze. "This isn't just a storage system," she whispered. "It's running real-time quantum computations." They weren't looking at history. They were standing inside the mind of the machine. Every digital trend, every swing in public sentiment, every meme, movement, election, market collapse, predicted, modeled, directed. Trump stepped toward the primary console. A single line blinked on the screen. "Welcome back, 44. It wasn't just software. It had been built for a master, and now it thought he had returned." Trump didn't hesitate. Copy everything. As petabytes of behavioral warfare data flowed into the exfiltration drive, the walls began to hum with growing intensity. Then the countdown appeared. Integrity breach detected. Purge sequence initiated. 10:09:59. The system was going to self-destruct. "We're not just stealing data," Trump said. "We're ending the war." They planted a quantum destabilizer. Untraceable, irreversible. Trump looked back at the floating core one last time. "You lied to the world. Now the world hears nothing from you ever again." They escaped through the auxiliary shaft, into the storm. Minutes later, from the safety of their aircraft, they watched the glacier split open. An inferno erupted through ice older than civilization. Shadow Base 9 was no more, and with it, the mind of the machine. At first, nothing changed. The skies didn't crack. The networks didn't crash. News anchors read the evening bulletins as usual. People posted selfies. Drones delivered packages. Stocks ticked. But beneath it all, the machine had gone quiet. Like the world had taken a breath it didn't know it was holding. Then the glitches began. The unraveling. Algorithms lost coherence. Trending topics stalled mid-surge. Fake news bots went silent. Ads stopped targeting correctly. Governments failed to predict public response. The deep learning systems that once knew what people would believe before they did began returning blanks. In Europe, a minister admitted on live TV, "Something's wrong with the social grid. The influence engines, they're gone." In Beijing, markets moved erratically without synthetic sentiment shaping. In Silicon Valley, ad revenues plummeted. The tech elite were terrified. They had lost the ghost that whispered in the wires. The data dump. Then came the drop. At exactly 4:44 a.m. EST, an anonymous torrent lit up global servers, a 27 terabyte file labeled "The Illusion Machine." It contained internal data from Shadow Base 9, models of population behavior, classified mimetic weaponization charts, real-time psychological mapping, election scripts, viral implant sequences, proof of a civilization silently engineered. Within hours, conspiracy theories turned to evidence. Journalists who once laughed now wept. The world realized it hadn't been living in the dark. It had been programmed to forget the light. The response. Mass protests. Demands for global reform, crashes in trust indexes, tech moguls vanished, intelligence directors resigned, allies turned against each other. The illusion of consent shattered. But no one could trace the leak. Not officially. No fingerprints, no press release, no speech. Just a quiet man in Florida, walking alone along the shoreline as the tide rolled in beneath a burning red dawn. The world had woken up. But the question now was, what would it do with its freedom? Long after the fires of Shadow Base 9 faded into Arctic silence, the world remained divided. Some clung to denial. Others turned to rage. But a quiet revolution stirred in the minds of those who had glimpsed the truth. Not just the existence of a machine, but the system of belief it was built to protect. From university lecture halls to war rooms, from dinner tables to parliaments, one question echoed louder than any protest. If reality can be programmed, then what is real? The moral warfare. What Trump had uncovered wasn't just surveillance. It was a war, fought with ideas disguised as information. No bullets, no bombs, just subtle cues. Clickbait, hashtags, precision narratives that nudged populations toward outrage, distraction,